So this is John 18, starting with verse 19. The high priest then asked Jesus of his disciples and of his doctrine. Jesus answered him, I spake openly to the world. I ever taught in the synagogue and in the temple, whether the Jews always resort. And in secret have I said nothing. Right? So he said, look, I came to the world. I came to the Jews. I came to the synagogue. Right? I've never hidden anything about what I teach and what my disciples teach, what I taught my disciples. Why ask thou me? Ask them which heard me what I have said unto them. Behold, they know what I said. Right? So Christ is essentially pleading the fifth. Right? He's not giving anything where they can that they could use against him. Right? Because even if he said all the right things, they may pick and choose a word out of context and say, well, there you go. Right, now we got you. Right? And when he had thus spoken, one of the officers which stood by struck Jesus with the palm of his hand. So he smacked it, he slapped it, saying, Answer thou the high priest so? Jesus answered him, If I have spoken evil, bear witness of the evil. But if well, why smitest thou me? Right? So he said, look, if I've done evil, then tell him what I did. If not, then why are you smacking me? Why are you slapping me? Right? Now, Annas had sent him bound unto Caiaphas, the high priest. Right? So at this point in the Judean religious government, the Judean theocracy that they had going on at this point, they had instituted two high priests. All right? They had instituted Annas, I believe, he was too old to perform the duties, but he was not quite dead yet. They didn't want to set him down as an elder. They didn't want to take his authority away from him. And so they brought up Caiaphas to be the high priest, and now they have these two high priests, Annas and Caiaphas. All right. So we already read about Peter's denial, so we're going to jump down to verse 28. Then led they Jesus from Caiaphas unto the hall of judgment, and it was early. And they themselves went not into the judgment hall, lest they should be defiled, but that they might eat the Passover. Pilate then went out unto them and said, What accusation bring ye against this man? Right? So John lets you know in the next chapter that the Passover is actually approaching. The Passover has not come yet officially. This is what is the preparation day for the Passover. All right? So they don't want to be defiled so that they can eat the Passover, right? Because if you're not clean, you can't eat the Passover according to the Levitical priesthood. All right? So what accusation bring ye against this man? This is what Pilate is asking. A Roman. All right? They answered and said to him, If he were not a malefactor, we would not have delivered him up unto thee. Right? So they can't even give him a charge. They can't even, they have detained him with no charge brought against him. All right? And they're saying, well, we got something on him, but they can't say what it is because they don't really have anything on him. All right? Then said Pilate unto them, Take ye him and judge him according to your law. The Jews therefore said unto him, It is not lawful for us to put any man to death, that the saying of Jesus might be fulfilled, which he spake, signifying what death he should die. Right? In John 7, he went about saying, Why are y'all trying to kill me? Right? They're saying, We're not trying to kill you, yet that's literally what they're doing here. They're bringing him to Pilate to say, Hey, you're a Roman. Kill this Jew. Right? You're a white man, kill this black man. Right? Essentially. And they're like, Look, we can't kill him because he's done no killable offense, right? He's done no, he hasn't broken the Sabbath in a substantial way that we can kill him on that. He hasn't, or in any way really, but they try to say, and that's what we went into before about them trying to say they broke the Sabbath. He never did. They can't kill him on that ground. He hasn't committed adultery. They can't kill him on that. He hasn't done anything that's a killable offense, right? So they said, look, we can't kill him, but y'all Romans, y'all like killing us. So y'all kill this man, right? Then Pilate entered into the judgment hall again and called Jesus and said to him, Art thou the king of the Jews? Jesus answered him, Sayest thou this thing of thyself, or did others tell it thee of me? Right? So he's asking Pilate, do you think that I'm the king of the Jews? Or did somebody tell you? That's what I've been saying. All right. Pilate answered, Am I a Jew? Thine own nation and the chief priests have delivered thee unto me. What hast thou done? Right? So he said, Look, I'm not a Jew. I don't know what y'all got going on. Right? I ain't in y'all's business. I'm a Roman. I got Roman business to take care of. Right? He's like, What'd you do? Why do they want to kill you? All right. Jesus answered, my kingdom is not of this world. If my kingdom were of this world, then would my servants fight, that I should not be delivered to the Jews. But now is my kingdom not from hence. He's like, look, I am the king of the kingdom of heaven, right? I'm not the king of this world that y'all got going on. There's a lot of things that have to happen before I can take my kingdom, right? That's the underlying context of him saying this. But he's of course, he's saying all the right things so that he's not going to be condemned based off his speech, which he can't be because he's only speaking the truth, right? That's what he's about to say here. But now is my kingdom not from hence. Pilate therefore said unto him, art thou a king then? Jesus answered, thou sayest that I am a king. He said, you said it. To this end was I born, and for this cause came I into the world, that I should bear witness unto the truth. Everyone that is of the truth heareth my voice. He's like, look, they just hate me because I've been speaking the truth. And those who follow me because I've been speaking the truth. All right? Pilate said unto him, what is truth? And when he had said this, he went out again unto the Jews and said unto them, I find in him no fault at all. Right? So Jesus didn't reply whenever Pilate asked, well, what's the truth? He just left him pondering on that question. And Pilate's like, I can't condemn this guy. Like, he ain't done anything, right? I find in him no fault at all. But ye have a custom that I should release unto you one at the Passover. Will ye therefore that I release unto you the king of the Jews? Then cried they all again, saying, not this man, but Barabbas. Now Barabbas was a robber. All right, so there's something that I want to get in Matthew 27. All right. Before we actually get into the death sentence, right? The death row that he gets on, the chair, if you will. All right. The what was it called? Capital punishment. Before we actually get into the capital punishment, there's something in Matthew 27 that I want to read. I believe it's Matthew 27. Might be Matthew 26. Yeah, it might be Matthew 26. About the part concerning Barabbas. No. No, it is Matthew 27. That's my fault. It is Matthew 27. This is about the Barabbas incident. It goes into more detail about the whole Barabbas situation. This is Matthew 27, starting with 15. Now at that feast, the governor was wont to release unto the people a prisoner, whom they would. Right? So it was, as we read in John, it was a custom around the Passover. They would release one prisoner to, assuage whatever resentment the Jews held, right? And they had then a noble prisoner called Barabbas. Therefore, when they were gathered together, Pilate said unto them, whom will ye that I release unto you, Barabbas or Jesus, which is called Christ? Right, so this is like in front of a crowd of people, right? For he knew that for envy they had delivered him, right? So Pilate could tell, look, they just want this man dead because they envy the way that he can rally the people with the truth. The Pharisees couldn't do that. Why? Because they were out to spirit, they were hypocrites, they were, not following the truth, the laws of God, all right? When he was set down on the judgment seat, his wife said unto him, saying, have thou nothing to do with that just man? For I have suffered many things this day in a dream because of him. Right? So she had a dream the night previous, about what was going to happen here. Right? So she said, look, don't have anything to do with this Jesus guy, with this Christ guy. All right? But the chief priests and elders persuaded the multitude that they should ask Barabbas and destroy Jesus. So the Pharisees had a way of manipulating the crowd, of manipulating the people into, getting them to ask for Barabbas instead of Jesus. All right? They said, Barabbas. The governor answered and said to them, whether of the twain will ye that I release unto you? They said, Barabbas. Pilate said unto them, what shall I do then with Jesus, which is called Christ? They all say unto him, let him be crucified. And the governor said, why? What evil hath he done? But they cried out the more, saying, let him be crucified. All right? So the whole crowd at this point, the Pharisees and the Sadducees have rallied the crowd against Jesus. All right. And they said, release unto us Barabbas. We got to kill this Jesus guy. All right. Verse 24. When Pilate saw that he could prevail nothing, but that rather a tumult was made, it's a mob. All right. He took water and washed his hands before the multitude, saying, I am innocent of the blood of this just person. See ye to it. All right. So Pilate said, I don't want nothing to do with the blood of this man. All right. Then answered all the people and said, his blood be on us and on our children. All right. So the same way that in Exodus 19, you had the covenant being made with the children of Israel. All right. And Moses took the blood from the sacrifices and sprinkled the blood on the people. And they said, this blood be upon us and on our children. Right? This covenant be on us and our children. The same way, the Messiah's blood was sprinkled on the children of Israel and their children. They said, his blood be upon us and upon our children. All right? The children of the covenant. It's the same thing. In the Old and the New Testament, it's the same thing. All right? The only difference is Christ is the sacrifice. Then answered all the people and said, his blood be on us and on our children. Then released he Barabbas unto them, and when he had scourged Jesus, he delivered him to be crucified. So even though Pilate said, I'm going to wash my hands in the situation, he couldn't do this without beating him up a little bit, right? Because Pilate was a bloodthirsty maniac, all right? People read this, then they just read this part of Matthew, and they think, oh, Pilate was a nice guy. No, Pilate was a bloodthirsty maniac. All right? He didn't even go to this situation. He said, well, his blood ain't on my hands, but I'm going to beat him up a little bit. All right? But anyway, let's get back to John 19. And even John gives the same account. Then Pilate therefore took Jesus and scourged him. And the soldiers platted a crown of thorns and put it on his head. And they put on him a purple robe and said, Hail, King of the Jews. And they smote him with their hands. So they're beating him up. They're jumping him, whooping him, jumping him, tortured him. All right. Pilate therefore went forth again and said unto them, Behold, I bring him forth to you, that ye may know that I find no fault in him. So he, even when he's beating him up and jumping him and whipping him, hey, I ain't nothing wrong with this guy. He ain't did nothing wrong. He ain't done nothing wrong. That's the type of guy that Pilate was. All right. Then came Jesus forth wearing the crown of thorns and the purple robe. And Pilate said unto them, Behold the man. When the chief priests therefore and officers saw him, they cried out, saying, Crucify him, crucify him. Pilate saith unto them, Take ye him and crucify him, for I find no fault in him. So you see that? That's the type of guy that Pilate was. That's like a governor of the state saying, Hey, there ain't nothing wrong with this guy. Put him in a chair. Hey, he's innocent. Put him in a chair. That's what Pilate did. All right? That's the type of guy that Pilate was. Hey, there's nothing wrong with this guy. Kill him. He ain't done nothing, but kill him anyway. I know he was being compelled by the Jews and all that kind of stuff. Of course. But the point is, Pilate was not about to stand up for him. That's not the type of guy that Pilate was. All right? Excuse me. The Jews answered him, We have a law, and by our law he ought to die because he made himself the Son of God. All right? Yet, when they brought this before Christ, in John 10, he brought it back to them saying, Look, does not the scripture say ye are gods? So why are you calling me a blasphemer for saying I'm the Son of God? Are we not all children of the Most High? Like, that's not blasphemy. To say you're a son of God. Or to say you're the Son of God. That's not blasphemy. All right? When Pilate therefore heard that saying, he was the more afraid, and went again into the judgment hall and said unto Jesus, Whence art thou? But Jesus gave him no answer. He said, so Pilate's like, oh, is that who we're killing? Is that who we're crucifying? The actual Son of God? He just told me that his kingdom was not on earth, or not from earth, not of earth. He said, Whence art thou? Meaning, where do you come from? But Jesus gave him no answer. Then said Pilate unto him, Speakest thou not unto me? Knowest thou not that I have power to crucify thee and have power to release thee? So he's like, look, I'm the governor. I can make this call. I could stop these Jews from getting in a frenzy right now. I could save your life if I wanted to. and you don't want to answer me? Jesus answered, thou couldst have no power at all against me, except it were given thee from above. Therefore he that delivered me unto thee had the greater sin. Right? So he's saying, look, the Jews are the ones that's in sin here. You're doing what you're supposed to do. All right? You're the one in power because God give you that power. All right? The ones that's in sin are the ones who are delivering me unto you. All right? And from thenceforth, Pilate sought to release him. But the Jews cried out, saying, if thou let this man go, thou art not Caesar's friend. Whosoever making himself a king speaketh against Caesar. Right? So now the Jews are using Roman law against Pilate. Even though Pilate is actually trying to say, hey, look, y'all should not be killing this guy. Right? Now, so now Pilate is saying, hey, look, y'all should release him. They're saying, look, no. You don't want to go against Caesar, do you? We'll call your boss. Right? When Pilate therefore heard that saying, he brought Jesus forth. Right? He said, I'm not going to lose my job over this. I don't even know this guy. All right? And sat down in the judgment seat in a place that is called the pavement, but in the Hebrew, Gabbatha. And it was the preparation of the Passover. All right? It says, and it was the preparation of the Passover. Right? So when it says in Luke that it was the preparation of the Sabbath, that's the Sabbath that it's talking about, the Passover. It was not on Friday. This did not happen on Friday. All right, we'll get into that later. All right, and about the 6th hour. 6th hour is like lunch. It's like noon. All right, and he saith unto the Jews, behold your king. But they cried out, away with him, away with him, crucify him. Pilate said unto them, shall I crucify your king? The chief priests answered, we have no king but Caesar. All right? Understand that. Understand that thing. That's heavy. All right? Remember what Christ said. If you read this before, we didn't get into it because it's more doctrine than it is history. But they in Matthew 22, they asked Christ, hey, should we pay our taxes? And Christ said, render unto Caesar what is Caesar's. They said, look, our king is Caesar. All right? And he said, render unto God what is God's. They're letting you know, look, we don't really serve God. We don't really serve the one true king of heaven and earth. We serve Caesar. All right? It's a lot of people these days is like that. And not just people in the world either. Not just people who you may think. But obviously it is the worldly people. But I mean, it's also people in churches. All right? Even some that's calling themselves Israelites. All right. Verse 16. Then delivered he him, therefore, unto them to be crucified. And they took Jesus and led him away. And he, bearing his cross, went forth into a place called the place of a skull, which is called in the Hebrew Golgotha, where they crucified him, and two other with him on either side. One and Jesus in the midst. So on either side, one and Jesus in the midst, right? So it was three of them. And Pilate wrote a title and put it on the cross, and the writing was Jesus of Nazareth, the King of the Jews. This title then read many of the Jews, for the place where Jesus was crucified was nigh to the city, and it was written in Hebrew, Greek, and Latin. Right? So when Christ was crucified, that emblem was written in Greek, Hebrew, and Latin. The name of Christ was written in Greek, Hebrew, and Latin. Then said the chief priests of the Jews to Pilate, write not the King of the Jews, but that he said, I am the King of the Jews. Pilate answered, what I have written, I have written. Right? So Pilate is a believer at this point. Right? Not in the fact that he's willing to change his life. He's not even willing to lose his job for Christ. But he is, he does believe what Christ says at the very least. Right? Not even, because Christ had never even said this. He just believed the report, essentially. Then the soldiers, when they had crucified Jesus, took his garments and made 4 parts, to every soldier a part, and also his coat. Now the coat was without seam, woven from the top throughout. They said therefore among themselves, let us not rend it, but cast lots for it, whose it shall be, that the scripture might be fulfilled, which saith, they parted my raiment among them, and for my vesture they did cast lots. These things therefore the soldiers did. Right? So the Roman soldiers, they sold Christ's garment at an auction. All right. Now, there stood by the cross of Jesus his mother and his mother's sister Mary, the wife of Cleophas, and Mary Magdalene. All right. Everybody was named Mary back then, evidently. When Jesus therefore saw his mother and the disciple standing by whom he loved, he said unto his mother, Woman, behold thy son. Then said he to the disciple, Behold thy mother. From that hour that disciple took her unto his own home. Right? Because back then, women didn't just live by themselves. All right? They always lived with a man, whether it be their husband, their father, or, if they were widowed or a single older lady, they stayed with their son. All right? So, but yeah, in this case, since Christ is dying, he says, look, John, because that's what he's talking about, the writer of this gospel. He says, John, hey, look, take care of my mother. That's what he's saying here. All right. So, before we read about this, and we might actually just read this section in Luke. All right. We'll come back. We'll come back to this, but we'll read this section in Luke. All right. Because there's something in Luke that I want to get. Luke 23, I believe it is. Yeah. Yeah. And it was about the 6th hour. And there was a darkness over all the earth until the 9th hour. Yeah, right there. So that's how long the crucifixion lasted, for about 3 hours. There was a darkness over all the earth until the 9th hour. And the sun was darkened, and the veil of the temple was rent in the midst. So what happened here is that there was a solar eclipse, right? Except this solar eclipse was over all the world, all right, over all the earth for 3 hours, all right. The veil of the temple was rent in the midst, right, symbolizing trying to use the proper word here, the transition. I'll put it like that. Symbolizing the transition from the old to the new covenant. The old covenant is done away with. There is a new covenant now. And when Jesus had cried with a loud voice, he said, Father, into thy hands I commend my spirit. Having said thus, he gave up the ghost. Now when the centurion saw what was done, he glorified God, saying, Certainly this was a righteous man. And all the people that came together to that sight, beholding the things which were done, smote their breasts and returned. And all his acquaintance and the women that followed him from Galilee stood afar off, beholding these things. All right, so here we see the death of Christ. All right. Now John 19. So I'll read this about the side being pierced. Yeah, and I'll just finish out right here instead of in Luke. So this is John 19:31. The Jews, therefore, because it was the preparation that the body should not remain upon the cross on the Sabbath day, for that Sabbath day was a high day, right? So when in Luke 23 it says that preparation, right? So where does it say that? Yes, and that day was the preparation, and the Sabbath drew on. And when Luke says that, this is what he's talking about, right? Because it was the preparation. All right, for that Sabbath day was a high day. It was the Passover. All right, the Passover was coming. This day was the day before the Passover that night. All right, but Saul Pilate that the legs might be broken and that they might be taken away. Then came the soldiers and break the legs of the first and of the other which was crucified with him. But when they came to Jesus and saw that he was dead already, they break down his legs. All right, so the other two were not killed in the crucifixion until the legs were broken, right? They ended up dying of whatever diseases afterward. But if they took them down off the cross and broke the legs so they couldn't get up and walk or run anywhere to receive some kind of treatment, right? So because it's supposed to be like a death sentence, right? But it wasn't foolproof, and that's why they had to start breaking people's legs. But Christ was already dead, so they didn't have to break his legs. They break down his legs, but one of the soldiers with a spear pierced his side, and forthwith came there out blood and water. Right, so they still had to prove that he was dead. So hey, give him a wound, right? Pierce him through. There's no reaction. He must be dead, right? Or if not, he'll bleed out, right? And he that saw it bare record, and his record is true. And he knoweth And he knoweth that he said true, that ye might believe. For these things were done that the scripture should be fulfilled. A bone of him shall not be broken. And again, another scripture said, they shall look on him whom they pierced. Right? So a bone of him shall not be broken. That's from the Psalms. They shall look on him whom they pierced. That's in Zechariah 12. It says right up here. And after this, Joseph of Arimathea, being a disciple of Jesus, but secretly for fear of the Jews, besought Pilate that he might take away the body of Jesus. And Pilate gave him leave. He came therefore and took the body of Jesus. And there came also Nicodemus, which at the first came to Jesus by night and brought a mixture of myrrh and aloes, about 100 pounds weight. Right. So some of the more wealthy disciples of Christ, they decided, we're gonna bury him, right? And they didn't do this openly; they did it secretly because the Pharisees were like, would have stopped them or prevented them, or even took away their status, or called them treasoners and had them put to death as well, right? So they took care of the body of Christ. Then took they the body of Jesus and wound it in linen clothes with spices, as the manner of the Jews is to bury it. Now in the place where he was crucified there was a garden, and in the garden a new sepulchre, wherein was never man yet laid. Because they used to put multiple people in sepulchres, all right? They would just, because the sepulcher, like the whole point, of burying here in America and graves, how we do it is very different than how it was with the scriptures. They only bury a body 6 feet here in America, so that animals don't come and pick up the corpse and take it off somewhere, right? But if you build a sepulcher, if you build an area to house the dead, you don't have to bury them 6 feet, all right? And that'll keep the animals out. You don't have to worry about animals getting in there. If you build a secure area, right? So that's what the ancient Israelites did. Is build sepulchers. Sometimes they would, just take a cave and make sure the cave was closed, as long as there was sufficient space, right? That's the case with Christ. He wasn't buried 6 feet in the ground. All right, that's just not how they did things. All right. Wherein was never a man yet laid. There laid they Jesus. Therefore, because of the Jews' preparation day for the sepulchre was nigh at hand. All right. So this next one I want to read in this next section. I want to read it in Mark. Well, actually, in John 20, it pretty much says the same thing. We'll see if Mark gives the same account that I recall. Mark 16. Yes, yeah. So John and Mark pretty much give the same account here, which is so I'll read it here in John and I'll read it in Mark just so we get an understanding. The first day of the week cometh Mary Magdalene early. First day of the week cometh Mary Magdalene early, when it was yet dark, unto the sepulchre, and seeth the stone taken away from the sepulchre. So we see here that Mary Magdalene came to the sepulchre before the sun had even risen on Sunday. All right? So we know the scriptures say that Christ has spent 3 days, 3 nights in the heart of the earth. I believe that is actually Matthew 16. Let me pull that real quick. Just so we get an understanding of this. I've talked about this before, but people still be doing Good Friday and Easter Sunday like that makes any sense. It does not. All right? That's not what scriptures talk about. All right? So I believe this here in Matthew Matthew 16 and I want to say, I want to say it's right here. No. No, yeah, okay, here we go. There we go. So this is Matthew 16 and 21. From that time forth began Jesus to show unto his disciples how that he must go to Jerusalem and suffer many things of the elders and chief priests and scribes and be killed and raised again the third day. All right? So, it was 3 days. All right? He said you're going to get the sign of Jonah. Jonah spends 3 days, 3 nights in the belly of the well, right? In the belly of a great fish, however you want to describe that. But the point is 3 days, 3 nights. All right? So, he spent the day on the cross, and he was put in the ground before night. But we can't count that day, but we can count that night, right? So let's just say, actually, let's start backwards. Excuse me. This is how I like to do it. Starting backwards here, because it said that the first day of the week, Mary came when it was dark into the sepulchre. So this is before Sunday morning. So we know that he had to have risen Saturday night. All right. So let's count days over here, nights over here, right? So let's count backwards. Saturday during the day, right? You got Friday night. Okay. So then you have Friday. That's only 2.5 days at that point. All right. Or that's only 1.5 days. Then you have Thursday night, right? That comes before Friday. Then you have Thursday. Then you have Wednesday night. So he must have went in the ground on a Wednesday night. All right, for him to be risen before the sun comes up on Sunday. Y'all see what I'm saying? Like, it wasn't he was crucified on Friday and then come back on Sunday. Like, that's not how time works. I want you to understand that. That's not 3 days. All right. So, because if he was crucified on Friday, we would say like Friday night is the first day, then Saturday, and he was already risen on Saturday night. Like, how is that 3 days? That's not how that works. That's 2 days. Like, it's not anyway. But yeah, you had the first day of the week. Comes Mary Magdalene earlier when it was yet dark to the sepulchre. See the stone taken away from the sepulchre. Then she runs to Simon Peter and to the other disciple whom Jesus loved, and says unto them, They have taken away the Lord out of the sepulchre, and we know not where they have laid him. Right? So she thinks somebody came and stole the body. Peter therefore went forth, and the other disciple, and came to the sepulchre. So they ran both together. And the other disciple did outrun Peter and came first to the sepulchre. Right? So John said, Look, I beat him there. Right? And he stooping down and looking in, saw the linen clothes lying, yet went he not in. Right? So he saw the linen clothes there, but he didn't go in. Then comes Simon Peter following him and went into the sepulchre, and seeing the linen clothes lie, and the napkin that was about his head, not lying with the linen clothes, but wrapped together in a place by itself. Right? So demonstrating that whoever was here separated the napkin that was on his face, right? The gauze that was wrapped around his face, and the clothes, all right, that was wrapped around his body. Then went in also that other disciple which came first to the sepulchre, and he saw and believed. For as yet they knew not the scripture that he must rise again from the dead. Right? So they didn't know. Right? They just thought somebody had stole the body. All right. So in Mark 16, it talks about the same thing about Mary coming. It said that Mary had a group. It wasn't just Mary herself. And when the Sabbath was passed, so Mark just tells you straight up, hey, it was after the Sabbath. All right. And when the Sabbath was passed, Mary Magdalene and Mary the mother of James and Salome had bought sweet spices that they might come in and anoint him. And very early in the morning, the first day of the week, so it says again, very early in the morning, the first day of the week, right? So he was already risen by Sunday morning. All right, he didn't rise on Sunday morning. He was already risen by Sunday morning. John let you know that, hey, it was still dark outside whenever Mary went and saw that his body was already gone. After the Sabbath, they went out and bought the stuff that they needed to come and anoint him, right? They came unto the sepulchre at the rising of the sun, right? So they were there while the sun was coming up. All right, so he was already risen before Sunday morning. And they said among themselves, Who shall roll us away the stone from the door of the sepulchre? When they looked, they saw that the stone was rolled away, for it was very great. And entering into the sepulchre, they saw a young man sitting on the right side, clothed in a long white garment, and they were frightened. And he saith unto them, Be not affrighted. Ye seek Jesus of Nazareth, which was crucified. He is risen. He is not here. Behold the place where they laid him. But go your way. Tell his disciples and Peter that he goeth before you into Galilee. There shall you see him, as he said unto you. And they went out quickly and fled from the sepulchre, for they trembled and were amazed. Neither said they anything to any man, for they were afraid. Right? So according to John, Like John didn't know that they saw an angel there. And Mary and them women, they didn't tell nobody that they saw an angel there, right? So how could John know that? All right. Then the disciples went away again unto their home, to their own home. But Mary stood without at the sepulchre weeping. And as she wept, she stood down and looked into the sepulchre, and see two angels in white, sitting, one at the head and the other at the feet, where the body of Jesus has lain. So John's saying that there was two angels there that Mary saw. And they said to her, Woman, why weepest thou? She said unto them, Because they have taken away my Lord, and I know not where they have laid him. And when she had thus said, she turned herself back and saw Jesus standing, and knew not that it was Jesus. Right? So she saw Jesus as well. Jesus saith unto her, Woman, why weepest thou? Whom seekest thou? She, supposing him to be the gardener, saith unto them, Sir, if thou have borne him hence, tell me where thou hast laid him, and I will take him away. Right? So she thinks, she don't know it's Jesus yet. She thinks that it's the gardener. She said, Look, if you move the body, just tell me where you moved it to. She just saith unto her, Mary. She turned herself and said unto him, Rabboni, which is to say, Master. Right? It's another way of saying Rabbi. Jesus said unto her, Touch me not, for I am not yet ascended to my Father, but go to my brethren and say unto them, I ascended to my Father and your Father, and to my God and your God. Mary Magdalene came and told the disciples that she had seen the Lord, but they, and that he had spoken these things unto her. All right. So we see Christ appear to the other disciples as well. All right. So of course, Mark gives the same account of Christ appearing to Mary Magdalene first. We just read that, and here we see appearing to two others. And after that, he appeared in another form unto two of them as they walked and went into the country. And they went and told unto the residue, neither believed they them. Right, so this doesn't even name the disciples. This might not even be of the 12. Right, this may just be two other students of Christ. All right. Then the same day, this is back in John 20, then the same day at evening, being the first day of the week, when the doors were shut, where the disciples were assembled for fear of the Jews, came Jesus, and stood in the midst, and said unto them, Peace be unto you. He showed up and said, Shalom. And when he had so said, he showed unto them his hands and his side. Then were the disciples glad when they saw the Lord. Right, so he still got his wounds. Right. Then said Jesus to them again, Peace be unto you, as my Father has sent me, even so I send you. And when he had said this, he breathed on them and said unto them, Receive ye the Holy Ghost. So this is where he gives them the Spirit. Whosoever sins ye remit, they are remitted unto them. And whosoever sins ye retain, they are retained. All right, so he gives them the spiritual power that he had. He gave it to them freely. All right. But Thomas, one of the 12, called Didymus, was not with them when Jesus came. The other disciples therefore said unto him, We have seen the Lord. But he said unto them, Except I shall see in his hands the print of the nails, and put my finger into the print of the nails, and thrust my hand into his side, I will not believe. Right, so Thomas, this is where the conception of doubting Thomas comes. He didn't want to believe that Christ resurrected. And after 8 days again, his disciples were within, and Thomas with them. Then came Jesus, the doors being shut, and stood in the midst, and said, Peace be unto you. And showed up, said Shalom. Then saith he to Thomas, Reach hither thy finger, and behold my hands. And reach hither thy hand, and thrust it into my side. And be not faithless, but believing. And Thomas answered and said to him, My Lord and my God. Jesus saith unto him, Thomas, because thou hast seen me, thou hast believed. Blessed are they that have not seen, and yet have believed. Right? So here we get another... Second Esdras talks about a generation that believes in the Lord without ever having seen him, ever having seen miracles being done. So that's what Christ is saying here too. He's saying, look, there's going to be some blessed individuals, a blessed generation who have never seen me but still believe anyway. All right. So I just want to read a couple other things in Luke 20. I think it's 23. It might be 24. Yeah, because we just finished 23, so it's got to be 24. About how he appeared to some more people. Great. Actually, this is at least the first of these is the same that Mark kind of brushed over about how he appeared to two of his disciples. So we'll get a little bit more detail here from Luke. Yeah, so we'll read that and then read this next one that he talks about. I suppose all this is still one story. So we'll read this right here. And behold, two of them went that same day to a village called Emmaus, which was from Jerusalem about 60 furlongs. And they talked together of all these things which had happened. So by the way, 60 furlongs is about like 12 miles. Thereabout. They talked together of all these things which had happened. And it came to pass that while they communed together and reasoned, Jesus himself drew near and went with them. But their eyes were holden that they should not know him. Right? So when Christ initially appeared to, as we saw with Mary Magdalene, he didn't appear as himself. He kind of cloaked his, kind of wore disguise in a spiritual sense. And he said unto them, what manner of communication are these that ye have one to another, as you walk in our sight? He says, like, why are you feeling down? And one of them, whose name was Cleopas, answering said unto him, art thou only a stranger in Jerusalem, and hast not known the things which are come to pass there in these days? He's like, look, where have you been at? And he said unto them, what things? And they said unto him, concerning Jesus of Nazareth, which was a prophet, mighty in deed and word before God and all the people. And how the chief priests and our rulers delivered him to be condemned to death, and have crucified him. But we trusted that it had been he which should have redeemed Israel. See, that was the mentality of the people when they and we talked about this with John the Baptist a couple of weeks ago. When Christ first stepped on the scene, they thought that he was immediately going to give them back the kingdom, take it from Rome, then and there. All right, but that obviously was not his mission. His mission was to, die, give us a chance at repentance, and here we are 2,000 years later, and we still haven't taken that opportunity. All right? And beside all this, today is the third day since these things were done. All right, so they even let you know right there, it's been 3 days. Yea, and certain women also of our company made us astonished, which were early at the sepulchre. And when they found not his body, they came saying that they had also seen a vision of angels, which said that he was alive. And certain of them which were with us went to the sepulchre and found it even so as the woman had said, but him they saw not. All right, so and that lets you know that when Peter and John went to the sepulchre, like they didn't see Christ, they didn't see the angels. All right, but Mary and them did. Then he said unto them, O fools and slow of heart to believe all that the prophets have spoken. Ought not Christ to have suffered these things and to enter into his glory? And beginning at Moses and all the prophets, he expounded unto them in all the scriptures of things concerning himself. Right? So he sat down with them, was taking them through the scriptures, taking them through the word, saying, hey, this is how I fulfill this, here's how I fulfill this is what I did here to fulfill this one, and so on and so forth. All right? And they drew nigh into the village, whither they went, and made as though he would have gone further. And he made as though he would have gone further. But they constrained him, saying, abide with us. Right? So he was like, okay, I've already shown you all the scriptures, I'm going to keep you moving. Right? You do the same for others. They said, no, stay here for the night. For it is toward evening, and the day is far spent. And he went into tarry with them. Right? So he stayed. And it came to pass, as he sat at meat with them, he took bread and blessed it and brake and gave to them. And their eyes were opened, and they knew him, and he vanished out of their sight. So as soon as he broke the bread, that's when they realized, oh, this has been Jesus the whole time, right? And that's when he disappeared and went on as he was already going to move on to the next group of people he's got to expound this to. They said one to another, did not our heart burn within us while he talked with us by the way, and while he opened to us the scriptures? Right? They said, we knew that he had the Spirit. We knew that this was all in the Spirit of Christ and the Spirit of God. Right? And they rose up the same hour and returned to Jerusalem and found the 11 gathered together, and them that were with them. Right? So what happened to Judas? We'll talk about that next week because it's also written in Acts. All right? Saying, the Lord is risen indeed and hath appeared to Simon. And they told what things were done in the way, and how he was known of them in breaking bread. So they had to let the disciples know the situation.